The Revenant is one of those movies that deeply affected me, not only the first time that I saw it, but every time I watch it, I find myself liking it more and more, and now I can confidently say that it deserves a spot within my top 10. I wanted to take a few minutes and discuss a few things about this movie that makes it feel so special for me, and go over what I think some of the themes and messages of it that it's trying to say. If you've never seen this movie before, this video will contain spoilers, but before I go into it, I'll give you a general overview of the storyline. The movie takes place in the 1820s in North America in a very cold and unforgiving winter setting that immediately makes you feel this impending presence as soon as the movie starts. But the interesting thing about it is that fear that you feel, like anything can be lurking around any tree within the middle of this forest, is related back to the simplistic and most viscerally real feeling that we have, and that is of our own survival. Whenever we are taken out of our comfort zones of modern conveniences and placed within the middle of nature, it kind of reverts us back to this understanding that we as humans are not more powerful than the land around us. We are part of it, but we cannot control it, and that thought makes a lot of us uneasy. This is where the movie starts and where it will stay for most of its run. The main characters are a group of fur trappers trying to hunt and get as many pelts as they can to take back home and sell. The two main characters are played by Leonardo DiCaprio, who famously won an Oscar for his performance in this movie, and Tom Hardy, who probably plays the most frustratingly dark character I've ever seen him play. The word revenant means to return as if from the dead, and this movie in its entirety exemplifies something that I resonate deeply with, which is that indomitable will of the human spirit to continue forward no matter what. Basically, survival in its purest form, and the sheer difficulty and brutality that is associated with it. DiCaprio's character, Hugh Glass, early on in the movie, is viciously attacked and mauled by a grizzly bear in the woods, in perhaps one of the most horrific and intense scenes that I have ever watched. But small fun fact about me, I have actively had nightmares about being killed by a bear before. Maybe I was in a past life, I don't know. But the bear sequence in The Revenant is so truly realistic and horrifying. It's some of the best CGI that I've ever seen, and never once am I questioning the realism of the bear or of this scene. It's a very long, unbroken shot that goes on and on and on as Glass feebly attempts to fight back. Then he tries to play dead. He tries to crawl away. He does everything you can think of, but he's mauled nearly to death. And this is only the beginning. Saying anything else will definitely go into spoiler territory, so this is the gist. Glass is a fur trapper, Fitzgerald is an asshole, and after being attacked by a bear, he is left for dead. And the rest of the movie is him alone in the frozen tundra, trying to find his way back to civilization, and of course get revenge. But there's also much more than that. Spoilers from here on out, but the survival aspect of this movie is what I gravitate towards. It's interesting to me to see characters that are pushed to the absolute brink and are in a position where they probably would be better off just letting themselves die, but instead they choose to continue living. There's a special line in the movie that says, "As long as you can grab a breath, you fight." And I really, really resonate with that. Being attacked by the bear and being laid out unable to move or speak was only the beginning of Glass's hardship. Glass also had a son who is half Pawnee, and this of course attributes to a lot of racism towards him. Glass even telling him to keep his head down because men won't hear his words, they will only see his face. Obviously, after the bear attack, they need some people to stay behind to look after Glass. His son, a boy named Jim, and Fitzgerald all decide to do it, though Fitzgerald is only doing it for the extra monetary reward. When Fitzgerald is alone with Glass, he decides it would be easier just to kill him and then tell everyone that he just died of his injuries. No one would really question him for it, but before he can, Glass's son tries to intervene, which causes Fitzgerald to murder him right in front of Glass's eyes, who is trying so hard to stand up and defend his son, but his body is so injured that he can't even move. He can't even scream. All he can do is watch. Then Fitzgerald buries Glass in the ground, convinces Jim that they're about to be ambushed, and leaves him for dead. Glass is alone, stranded in the middle of the snow-blinded desert, alone with the corpse of his son rotting nearby, and the knowledge of Fitzgerald's betrayal. There is definitely a spiritual component to the movie as well, but it's very unspecific. But it's one of the major differences between Glass and Fitzgerald. Glass has a respect and understanding of nature. For instance, I don't think Glass has any personal hatred even for the bear that attacked him. He winds up wearing its pelt in order to survive, and it keeps him warm for most of the rest of the movie. And to me, it's just a matter of understanding the brutal neutrality of the world. In nature, there isn't the same moral judgments of good and evil that we give things as humans. There's no revenge, per se. The bear was protecting its cubs, and that was it. And Glass uses the bear fur to stay warm, and that is it. Neither is evil, it's just what it is. Life is harsh, it's cruel, unpredictable, and largely out of our control. We can only do our best to survive within it. Glass's connection to the native lifestyle and his late wife probably also plays into his feelings about it. But someone like Fitzgerald is fully and completely selfish and out for personal gain. He has no respect for nature or the world around him. This is also reflected in how he approached his profession as opposed to Glass. Fitzgerald is doing what he has to for his own preservation. He wants to get paid as much as possible. He wants to mitigate risk as much as possible. He will lie, manipulate, and even outright steal and murder if it suits him, throwing the natural order out of whack for his own advantage. The frightening feeling of the natural world we get in the beginning of this film and within its first act starts to dissipate more as the film goes on, which is an ironic twist because we see Glass alone, cold, facing the dangers of this world, and at any minute he might die suddenly from another unforeseen event. But as much as the world is able to tear him down, there are just as many things that enable him to survive. The bear pelt, the meat, and of course the act of kindness, by saving the captured Arikara girl from the camp of the French hunters. Another quote from a native character in the movie says that revenge is in the creator's hands. Now, whether you interpret that to be God, or just the universe, the world, nature, whatever it is, Glass's main driving force to make it back to civilization is to kill Fitzgerald for what he did. That he has nothing. His wife was killed before the film began, and his son right in front of his eyes. Glass is more like a restless soul wanting to finish one final task before moving on to the next world. And the irony that though Glass probably wishes to die, just unable to, knowing that Fitzgerald is out there, he slowly becomes more balanced with the world than ever before. You can wonder if revenge or giving up revenge is a test by God, or it could be a look at the true indifference of the world and what it is that we ultimately are most afraid of. Afraid that there might be no great guiding force, but just cause and effect, just karma or causality, or just the sense of control of a situation that we don't have. Glass has the guilt of letting his son die, but it's not like he let him die. There's nothing that he could have done, and it's not his fault. Any more than it would have been the fault of the bear cubs being the reason that their mom died. We all have one true intention, and that is to survive. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, but it's not ultimately up to us. It's up to, well, whatever happens. Meanwhile, Fitzgerald tells a story of his father meeting a vision of God, and God just being a squirrel, one that was killed and eaten, basically showcasing that control and selfishness that he feels over the world. Survival is not enough, it's about personal gain, expecting power and respect without giving it to the world around you. The final confrontation between Glass and Fitzgerald is also incredibly intense. After all, the entire film builds up to this moment. It first plays out as a game of cat and mouse through the snow and ends up as a viscerally realistic fight on the riverside. I love how the choreography doesn't try to make it flashy or like a regular movie fight. They're grappling on the ground awkwardly, swinging axes and knives, and it's just pure rage and adrenaline of two men trying to kill one another. When it gets to the point where Glass can deliver the final blow, he remembers the words of the Pawnee man he met stating that vengeance is in the Creator's hands. He then sends Fitzgerald down the stream, who is met by a group of the Arikara, who now have retrieved the girl that was taken from them that Glass helped free earlier in the movie. They take it to the punishment of Fitzgerald, who does need to be punished for his crimes, but Glass also needed to forgive himself for not being able to save his wife and son. Glass sending Fitzgerald off to let the Creator's hands deal with his fate was symbolic of both of these things. When he does this, there's a final vision of his wife who turns and walks away. After that, Glass stares directly into camera as it fades to black and we still hear him breathing. This, of course, can be interpreted dozens of ways. My 2 cents is that Glass had completed his spiritual journey. He was able to persevere, respect the world around him, allow forgiveness within himself, and for nature to take its course on that vengeance. He returned from the dead, symbolically anyway, became a revenant to come back to center and feel peace. I think that at this moment he has a choice to follow his wife, which would be to the afterlife, or to die, or, as the early quote says, as long as you have breath, you fight to live, and that he will continue to stay alive knowing that when he does eventually die, she will be there waiting for him. At the end of the day, there are a ton of ways to interpret this movie, but that's just one of the things that I love about it. Maybe what I think doesn't resonate with you, maybe it does. Spirituality is incredibly ambiguous as it is, and there's a ton to dissect and scenes that I didn't even get into, like the dream sequences. But I find myself loving this movie more and more every time I see it, and I just had to get some of my thoughts out about it. Let me know if you have seen The Revenant and what you think about it. I'd love any and all discussion on this movie, so feel free to let me know all of your thoughts down below. I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this video if you did, and if you did enjoy it, please let me know because I would love to do a lot more movie reviews and movie analysis videos if you guys are into it, but you gotta let me know if you are. So please comment, please like, please let me know if it's something you enjoy. Other than that, guys, have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll talk to you next time.